Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Pink, and I'm a doctoral student at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. And today I'm going to share with you a paper entitled Correcting Inaccurate Metaperceptions Reduces American Support for Partisan Violence. And I worked on this with my incredible co-authors, Joe Murnick, Jamie Druckman, and Rob Willer. So people today are really concerned about political conflict and political animosity in the US, whether the US is headed in the right direction, whether we split in two, whether the other party is a threat. And one aspect of this that my co-authors and I were really interested in is support for partisan violence. So you might say, why are you just looking at support? Why are you not looking at, actual acts of violence? And we think support is really important because it measures norms around nonviolence. So if more people are even a little bit supportive of partisan violence, it allows others to get away with violence without being sanctioned, without being punished. Now, most research so far on the causes of partisan violence have focused on really important aspects like trait aggression and strength of partisan identity. But the thing is, these are really hard to change. So we wanted to look to see whether there was a cause that might be a little bit more malleable. So we looked to research on metaperceptions. So a metaperception is a perception of a perception. In this case, it's what people think members of the other party think. And there's a lot of great research that shows that people grossly overestimate the extent to which members of the rival political party dehumanize their group, feel prejudice towards them, support undemocratic norms, and that these metaperceptions are often causally related to people's own partisan animosity. So in this project, we want to look to see first whether Republicans and Democrats in the US have accurate metaperceptions about rival partisan support for violence, and whether correcting these metaperceptions might reduce partisans' own support for violence. So the first studies we ran, we just wanted to measure, do people have accurate perceptions about the extent to which rival party members support the use of partisan violence? So what we did is we ran a survey, actually two surveys, with representative samples of partisans. We asked all participants first a set of questions measuring, like this one, measuring how much do you feel it is justified for members of your own party to use violence to advance their political goals these days. And then we also asked them the same questions, but we asked them to guess how do you think the average member of the other party responded to the same question. So overall, both Democrats and Republican support for violence was on average above 0, but still low. So, about 9 or 10 on a 100-point scale. But when we asked people to guess the other party's support for violence, people were completely off. They overestimated by a factor of 3 on average. And we saw this when we ran the study again in a slightly different sample at a different time. Okay, so we know that people are completely off about the extent to which the other party supports violence. Next, we wanted to study whether correcting these misperceptions might reduce individuals' own support for violence. So what do? What we did is we ran an experiment where we first asked all participants to answer those same metaperception items. So essentially to guess, how much do you think the average member of the other party supports violence? And then we randomized them into 2 conditions. So those in the control condition saw something like this, where they were shown the questions and then they were shown their guesses, no additional information. But the other half of participants, those in the correction condition, saw their guesses, but then they also saw the correct responses, which in most cases were much lower than their guesses. Then we asked them, how much do you support violence? What we found is that the correction condition decreased individuals' own support for violence by about 34%. And when we did the study again in a slightly different sample, which is the figure on the right, we found this effect replicates. And we also find some evidence that it's actually durable. So it lasted for about a month when we recontacted participants after the experiment. So what does this mean for the study of conflict and animosity? Well, perceptions of political conflict might be able to actually exacerbate conflict itself. And so there's a potential for a vicious cycle to start with increasing support for violence based on a perception that's completely inaccurate to start with. But the good news is that this can be corrected. This can be interrupted. So thank you so much for your time, and feel free to email me.